Is Honesty Kills? A moral story in English. The truth fell from his mouth like a blade, sharp and shining, and the moment it touched the air, Arun felt his life begin to bleed. The rain-soaked street outside the factory gate reflected the red glow of warning lights, and in that trembling reflection he saw his future crack, split, and quietly drift away. Honesty had always felt light in his chest, like clean breath after a storm, but that night it grew heavy, crushing, and he wondered for the first time if truth could be a kind of death. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us why humanity still matters, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Channel Name. Your support helps these stories reach hearts that need them. Aaron was not a brave man by nature. He was simply raised by a father who believed that a person's word was the only inheritance worth leaving behind. His childhood smelled of oil-stained hands and evening prayers, of a small rented room where his mother stitched clothes late into the night while his father returned exhausted from daily labor. They had taught him that honesty was not a strategy, but a way of standing upright in a world that constantly tried to bend people into convenient shapes. As Arun grew older, that lesson became a quiet companion, guiding his choices through school, through small failures, and into the narrow corridors of adulthood where survival often demanded compromise. He took a job as a quality supervisor in a manufacturing plant, grateful for the steady income, proud to send money home, and hopeful that hard work would be enough to protect him from the darker corners of life. The factory was a world of relentless noise and routine where machines roared like caged animals and time moved in shifts rather than days. Aaron learned to read the moods of metal in motion, to sense when something was off long before alarms sounded. He was respected by workers for his fairness and by management for his silence. That silence, he believed, was professional discipline, not dishonesty. He focused on numbers, checklists, and safety protocols, trusting that if he did his part well, the system would do the rest. But systems, like people, have shadows, and it was only a matter of time before he stumbled into one. The discovery came quietly, tucked inside a routine inspection that should have meant nothing. A batch of materials showed irregularities, small at first, then undeniable. The kind of flaw that could pass unnoticed until it reached customers, until it failed under pressure, until it caused harm. Arun's hands trembled as he rechecked the data, hoping he was wrong. He was not. The fault traced back not to a careless worker, but to a deliberate decision made higher up, a cost-cutting measure hidden behind altered reports. In that moment, the factory floor felt colder, the machines louder, and the weight of knowing pressed into his ribs. He understood the unspoken rule of survival there. Problems were managed, not exposed. Aaron carried the truth with him like a fever. At home, he stared at the ceiling, listening to the city breathe, imagining the chain of consequences that honesty would unleash. He thought of his parents, aging and dependent. He thought of his own modest dreams, fragile as glass. He thought of the unseen customers who trusted the products made by hands like his. Each thought pulled him in a different direction, tearing him apart. Fear whispered that honesty would cost him everything. Conscience answered that silence would cost him more. When he finally reported the irregularities through official channels, he did so with official channels, without drama accusations, simply laying facts where they belonged. The response was swift and merciless. Meetings closed without him. Smiles disappeared. His name became a quiet warning passed between managers. Within days, an internal review somehow concluded that Aaron had failed in his duties, that the fault was procedural, that responsibility rested conveniently on his shoulders. He was suspended pending investigation, his access card deactivated, his desk cleared by strangers who avoided his eyes. The truth he had offered was returned to him as punishment. Unemployment is not just the absence of work. It is the slow erosion of dignity. Arun felt it in the way days stretched endlessly, in the way neighbors' greetings grew awkward, in the way his phone stayed silent, savings dwindled. His parents tried to hide their worry, but he heard it in their pauses. He applied everywhere, carrying recommendations that suddenly felt weightless. Whispers followed him, vague and poisonous. He was labeled difficult, not a team player, a risk. Honesty, it seemed, had not only killed his job, but his reputation. There were nights when despair pressed so hard he struggled to breathe. He questioned everything he had been taught, every value he had held sacred. He imagined an alternate version of himself who had stayed silent, who still wore an ID badge, who slept without fear. That imagined life glittered cruelly, a mirage built on compromise. Yet even in his darkest moments, a stubborn ember refused to go out. He had told the truth. No one could take that from him. Change began not as a miracle, but as a ripple. An accident occurred at a different plant run by the same company, eerily similar to the flaw Aaron had reported. This time, the consequences were public and severe. Investigations widened. Old reports were reopened. Emails resurfaced. Aaron's name appeared, not as a culprit, but as a warning that had been ignored. Slowly, painfully, the narrative shifted. The truth, buried but alive, clawed its way back into the light. Aaron was called in, not to apologize, but to explain. He spoke with the same quiet clarity as before, facts steady, emotions contained. There was no triumph in him, only exhaustion and a deep sadness for the harm that could have been prevented. The company offered reinstatement, promotions, compensation. He listened, understanding at last that validation, when it comes too late, tastes bitter. He accepted a role that allowed him to enforce safety with independence, not out of ambition, but out of a need to ensure that truth would no longer be optional. Rebuilding was slow. Trust does not return all at once. It arrives in cautious steps. Arun worked harder than ever, not to prove himself, but to protect others from the cost he had paid. Workers began to see him not as a troublemaker, but as a shield. His parents slept easier. His own reflections softened. The scars remained, reminders etched into memory, but they no longer defined him. As years passed, Arun understood something deeper than the lesson he had learned as a child. Honesty does not kill. It tests. It strips away illusions, exposes rot, and demands a price. Sometimes that price is unbearably high. Sometimes the world punishes truth before it rewards it. But without honesty, the quiet deaths multiply unseen and uncounted. Without honesty, survival itself becomes a lie. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of moments when telling the truth felt terrifying but necessary, please take a moment to like, share, and support Channel Name. Your engagement keeps these stories alive for others who need courage. Before the ending, we have a special request for you. Please comment below with your thoughts on honesty, whether it ever cost you something or saved you in the end. Aaron often returned to that rain-soaked memory of the factory gate, to the night he felt his life bleed. He no longer saw it as an ending, but as a crossing. Honesty did not kill him. It burned away the easy paths, forcing him to walk a harder, truer road. And though that road was lonely at times, it led him back to himself, standing upright, breathing clean air after the storm.